Hi everybody, my name is Abraham, and again I'm your big brother in recovery, bringing you another educational video to help you to understand the plan of recovery. I hope you enjoyed our last video. If you didn't get a chance to look at it, take a look at it. It's called Truth or Consequences. And in that video, to summarize it for you, in the infamous words of my good friend Mr. T, I pity the fool. And who's the fool? The fool is the person who says there is no God. So therefore, let's let God be true and every other man be a lie, right? Because God is doing for us, certainly for me, what I could not have done for myself. So today, what I'd like for you to do, if you're new to the channel, I'd ask you to subscribe to the bottom. And if not, would you guys who've been with me for a while, thank you so much for returning. And my attempt today is twofold. Number one, not to give you my opinion. So therefore, those of you who know me, I often say, don't believe a word that I say, but go back and research it for yourself, and you'll have a greater appreciation for me, merely because truth is never invented. Truth is always discovered. And when you discover the truth will make you free. I'm a man in recovery who is free. So look, before we start this, I like to start off with a prayer that I always do, because in the 38 years that I've been clean and sober, one profound thing that I found out is the more I learn, the less I find out that I know. So I often do this before I do anything. And it goes like this. Dear God, please lay aside everything I think I know about myself, this book, my spiritual disease, these steps, and especially about you, dear God, so that I might have an open mind and a new spiritual experience with all these things. Please help me to see the truth. Amen. You know, I'm going to talk about a topic today. And those of you that know me, you know I'm about empowerment, not enslavement, merely because our program is a program of encouragement, not discouragement. It's a program, as my old sponsor used to say, about upgrading people and not degrading people. So therefore, our message of recovery is one word. It's hope. Hope for the hopeless. Why? Because they were seemingly hopeless and helpless when we met them. But those of us who have recovered, not recovering, recovered, are able to carry that message of hope. And that message is simple. We do recover. You know, in one fellowship, in chapter 8, the title of their chapter in the table of contents, if you look at it, it says we do recover. And they've adapted their methodology from the big book of AA. I am not a spokesman for Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm simply a member. Notice I didn't call myself Big Book Abraham, 12 and 12 Abraham. I didn't say I was a greasy dope fiend. I didn't say any of that. I just simply said I'm a member. And if you look in your book, you'll see that the book also requests that you omit your last name, designate yourself as a member of whatever fellowship, particularly this one, of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, with that being said, I also want to let you know a powerful question. The Greeks, philosophers, often ask this question. Powerful question. And that question is merely, who am I? Who am I? I know who I used to be, but I'm no longer that guy. I used to live to use and use to live. I'm no longer using to live or living to use. But I'll tell you who I am, outside of being a member. I am a sober person offering newcomers suggestions on recovery. If you put those acronyms together, you'll see that they spell out the word sponsor. I don't sponsor people anymore due to my schedule, and I'll explain that to you so some of you won't shun and feel that I am speaking to you from a spiritual mountaintop. But I don't sponsor people anymore because I don't have the time in my schedule. I write, I speak, I'm a counselor at a well-known treatment facility. I write books about addiction. And I go around the country and speak at recovery high schools, colleges, and so on and so forth. So in order to sponsor a person, you must not only have a lot of time, because it's time consuming, but what I do is I coach people. And I'll tell you the difference real quickly. A sponsor is limited to one approach, and that's the approach that they've been exposed to. But I am a professionally trained, board certified counselor, which not only knows an AA way, but I know about 20 other ways in which to take a person, because even our book says we have no monopoly on God, nor have we attempt to say that what we're saying is for everybody. In other words, if everything in your tool belt is a hammer, you'll treat everything as a nail. This worked for me, this may not work for you. But there is cognitive behavioral therapy, there is refuge recovery. My friend Rick Warren wrote a program called Celebrate Recovery for Christians. As you know, refuge is for Buddhists. There's Atheists Anonymous, there's Cocaine Anonymous, there's Alcoholics Anonymous. There are a plethora of different anonymouses. But on this channel, we're going to talk about all the ways, but this is the way that worked for me. And I'll tell you, I'm a fan of the great Alfred Hitchcock. And that brought me to the title of this. He would open up by saying good evening. And I loved that because I knew it was coming. But he would also, at the intermission, after he started playing with your mind in the 3 parts, he would possibly say, and now a word from our sponsor. Well, guess what? That's the title of this video. And now a word from our sponsors. Now, guess what? I want to start off. You're going to need 3 books. If you don't have them right now, watch this video. Go back and get the necessary books that I'm going to refer you to. Because the program is located in the book, not necessarily in the person, in the grand sponsor, in the fellowship, because the fellowship is totally different from the book. That's why not only do you need fellowship, but you need sponsorship to go along with fellowship, right? Now watch this. We're going to need the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? We're going to need our 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. And don't leave this one out. We're going to need our Big Book Dictionary. Why? Because I am an educator, not an entertainer. I'm not going to tell you my own opinion, because opinions are like garbage cans. In other words, everybody has one. Now, let's dive right into it. What I'm about to talk about today, I had an opportunity to take about 50 people this week through step 4. But what I told them was I could not be their 5th step person, the person that they would share what they wrote in their 4th. So, but I did help them frame it. And in helping them do that, I watched them begin to get spiritual experiences, emotional, and the relief was starting to lift off of them. And many of them were newcomers, and a lot of them had been around for a while. Okay, 2 of them were grand sponsors who had never did the 4th step, merely because of the fear that people inflicted upon them about the difficulty that they thought it entailed. However, it was very simple the way I took them. I read once in Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, he took 10,000 men through all the steps before he died. 10,000. Wow. What did they do then that we're not doing now? Tell you what, let's take a look in our book. Where I want to go is, let's look at a word from our sponsors. And I'd like to start with something really, really interesting. It's forward to the 1st edition. Forward to the 1st edition. Roman numeral 13, XIII. First paragraph. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered, ED, from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. They immediately tell us what addiction is. It's a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. That's what we recover from. Next, what he says next, to show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. Wow, they give you the laid out details. For them, meaning the addicted person. We hope these pages will prove so convincing that no further authentication, your big book dictionary says proof, will be necessary. Notice what they say next. We think this account of our experiences will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic or the addict. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. Notice what it's going to say. And besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. Circle the word all, because guess what they mean? People that are addicted in any other fellowship with any other addiction, right? No big I's, no little U's. Now, what I'd like to show you, excuse me, this is a word from our sponsors, right? They told you who they are. They told you what they're about to show you. And now they're about to tell you the plan of action in which they took. A word from our sponsors. Go with me to Roman numeral page XX, or X, give me a second, XXV. XXV. Now notice one of the people who they contacted to give his expert opinion, right? And it was Dr. Silkworth. Notice who this guy is. Notice the first paragraph, but read the last sentence in the paragraph. He was a well-known doctor, a chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing, watch this, in alcoholic and drug addiction. He gave Alcoholics Anonymous a letter for proof based on his years of experience. And he happened to have been Bill W.'s doctor at Towns Hospital in New York. Notice this, what he says, to whom it may concern, meaning the readers. I have specialized, he was a specialist in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. At this time, he had been working at Towns for 9 years. In late 1934, I attended a patient, Bill W., who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless. That's a key word, because you remember the people, our sponsors, told us they recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of what? Mind and body. Why? Their mind was killing their body, and their bodies were killing their minds. Watch this. In the course of his, meaning Bill's, third treatment, Bill went to treatment 3 times before he got sober. He acquired certain ideas concerning the possible means of recovery. We know he got them from Ebby, and we know Ebby got them from the Oxford group. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. This has become a basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. Watch this. This man, meaning Bill, who was hopeless, and over 100 others appear to have recovered. I personally know scores of cases who were of the type hopeless, with whom other methods had failed completely. Why? They figured something out. Now, if you turn your page to XXVI, just turn the page, look at the top of the left-hand column. I'm going to show you something that's interesting. Notice what he says. These men may well have a remedy or solution for thousands of such situations. You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves. That's a powerful statement coming from, look who, yours truly, William D. Silkworth, MD. I'm a board-certified substance abuse counselor, but I'm not a medical doctor. He knew something based on his experiences. He knew a lot. And I'll tell you some other things that he knew. Notice if you go to the right-hand side of your page, I'm just showing you a word from my sponsors because I'm going to put it all together for you as you know I'm about to, right? But I'm going to set you up. Roman numeral page XXVII to the right-hand side of the page. Notice what it says. The subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount. Now guess what the word paramount means? It simply means, watch this. You can count on it. In other words, it's primary. That's what the word paramount means. Look at it in your big book dictionary. In other words, of primary or urgent importance to those afflicted with the alcoholic addiction. Remember, seemingly hopeless state of mind and body? Now notice what he's going to say. I say this after many years' experience. He saw many men. As medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcoholics and, drug addiction. Our other fellowship should have saw that one. Watch this. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on the subject, which is covered in such masterly details in these pages. He's saying that he agrees with everything that they say, what Bill and them wrote with the 100 men and women. Notice what he's going to say next. Pretty much no human power, even him as a doctor, could help these men. Watch what he's going to say. We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics. You remember I told you in the last video, the big book of alcoholics is not only a book of psychology, we see it there, but also a book of spirituality. But its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. So in other words, the doctor couldn't help them. What would our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside of our synthetic knowledge. Notice what he's going to say. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book, Bill W., came under our care in this hospital, and while here, he acquired some ideas which he put into practical application at once. So that right there denounces the fact that meeting makers stay clean and sober. That's half true. How about this? Step takers stay clean and sober. These are the steps we took, not the meetings we made. Now, I want to show you something else. Turn your book to Roman numeral page XXIX. And I want to look at the second and third paragraph. He's going to tell us about a few simple rules, which are basically trust God, clean house, help others. Trust God is step 1 through 3. Clean house is step 4 through 11. Help others is step 12. Watch this. Men have cried out to me in sincere and despairing appeal. Doctor, I can't go on like this. I have everything to live for. I must stop, but I cannot. You must help. Notice what the doctor says. Because you remember we said, A, we were addicts and alcoholics and couldn't manage our own lives. B, probably no human power can relieve our addiction. But C, God could and would if he was sought. I often say he can't and he ain't, meaning God, if we don't seek him. Watch this. Faced with this problem, if a doctor is honest, or a counselor is honest, or a sponsor or grand sponsor is honest with himself, he must sometimes feel his own inadequacy. Although he gives all that is in him, it is often not enough. One feels that something more than human power is needed to produce the essential psychic or mind change. No human power can do it. My sponsor is not keeping me sober. The fellowship isn't keeping me sober because they're human. But God is doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, and I'm clear about it. Some people aren't, but that's not what we're here for. Watch this. Go with me, because with a word from my sponsor. We already heard from the more than 100 men and women. They contacted Dr. Silkworth, a medical director who specialized in the treatment of addicts and alcoholics. Notice what he said on page Roman numeral XXX, 3 X's, and 2 I's. Notice what he said, the page just before Bill's story on page 1. Notice this. This is what I want to get to. I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book. Why? It's a textbook. It's a book not only just to be read, but to be studied. The more I read this, the more I learn. And I've been reading it for over 38 years. Through and through, perhaps he may come to scoff. He may remain to pray. Let's look at your big book dictionary and let's look at what the word scoff means. I know what it means, but I want you to see. Notice what it says. It's interesting too. Let's look at it. It simply means to scorn, to mock, doubt, laugh at, poke fun at, or ridicule. So you can take whichever one of those words and place where scoff at. In other words, though through and through, perhaps he came to ridicule, he came to make fun at, he came to doubt, laugh at, poke fun at, he may remain to pray. This is a doctor telling you this, right? Not Abraham. This is not Abraham's opinion. This is not your sponsorship or the fellowship's opinion. This is the doctor opinion. Now notice something. I want to take you to Bill's story. And I want you to notice something. In Bill's story, the purpose of Bill's story is onefold: identification and realization. It's to identify with the hopeless despair that Bill went through, and every time I read it, I can relate to what he's saying. Even though my drug of choice wasn't always just alcohol, it started with it. It was definitely a big part of it, but it wasn't limited to, because my drug of choice was whatever you had. Notice on page 20 what they're going to say. First sentence. Further on, meaning in the book, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. They're meaning the first 164 pages. But notice what it says next. These are followed by 42 personal experiences. So they're letting us know, a word from our sponsors, what we need to do in order to get what they got. What do they have? They recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, which they consider to be the definition for alcoholism, or how about this, addiction. So that tells me addiction is 100% treatable. Notice something, if you do what they did. Notice next where I want to go. When the doctor talked about pray, that's where I want to get to, because many people that know me personally often ask me, why are you always on fire? Meaning, you're vibrant, there's no variance in your personality, they want what I have, and I tell them all the time, God is doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, because I've learned a long time ago, never take credit for what God is doing in your life, because if you don't humble yourself, you will be humiliated again, because I never forgot where I came from, but my past has been removed, and now I'm living in my present, looking forward to a better future, and God is taking me that way. So now I've dedicated my life to helping others, because when I help others, I help myself. I want to show you something now. When we talk about prayer, there are many, many people I've come to know over the years, some dead and gone, some are still suffering from insanity. I remember somebody told me about the disease of addiction, and I'm a trained professional. Do you know the word disease is only in the first 164 pages one time? And it's talking about resentment. In step 4, it's talking about it is the spiritual disease. That's the context it uses it in. They call addiction illness. They don't call it a disease, but that's a whole nother talk. That's like another member of another fellowship telling me, well, Abraham, I never recovered. I said, I have. And not only have I've been empowered to help others. Page 132, look at the second paragraph from the bottom. The word remission, that's what he used. He said, well, my addiction is in remission. Who am I to refute with him? But I told him, it might be noteworthy for you to notice the big book authors never used the word remission in the big book at all. If they would have used remission, they couldn't have used the word recovered, that's in the book over 20 plus times, and the word recovering is only in the book 2 times. Now, I say that to say this. Malcolm said it, I always do. If you don't read the book, or a person will never find it if it's not in the book. So, one of the things I want to talk about when the doctor said that a scoffer remains to read, or the doubter remains to read this, and if you recall, when I open up with prayer. Most people don't know that prayer is a major component in this program. Even the newcomer can do it. Every morning I get up about 3:30, no later than 4 o'clock, because I'm human. But guess what? Before I leave in the day, I always make a meeting before I leave the house. Now somebody might be saying, how do you do that? That's supernatural. It is, because you don't know the definition between a meeting and a group. A meeting is the gathering of 2 people. Those 2 people happen to be me and my higher power, right? But a group, a support group, is 3 or more. I make a meeting before I leave. Nowhere in the big book does it say make 90 meetings in 90 days, but it does say first things first. So guess what I must do? I must contact and stay in constant contact with my source, which I choose to call God. So guess what I'm doing every day? I'm seeking the power of his will, or the knowledge of his will, and I need the power to carry it out. So guess what I'm going to do? Not only am I going to pray, which is talk to my God, but I'm going to listen to, which is meditate on what he wants to tell me. So I'm going to sit quietly and do it, and that's what I want to show you. I've known men, as I forestated, that have fought, I'm talking about fellowship guys with big names, fought to get prayer taken out of meetings. Now, who are they to do that? And I hope you don't allow somebody to do it, because guess what? Prayer is a necessity to what this program is. Now, notice there's several prayers in this Bible. They didn't say religion. They said prayer. Prayer is nothing but you and I giving God permission to act on our behalf. Meditation is simply listening to the answer. That's communication, 2-way communication, not 1-way. So, I'm going to show you something. Page 85, first paragraph. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. You know what that is. I'm sitting on mine. We're headed for trouble if we do. For alcohol is a subtle foe, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Watch this. We're not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Notice it didn't say physical or mental condition, but it says spiritual condition. What is our spiritual condition? Trust God, clean house, help others. In other words, I want to stay connected with God. I want to continue to do right by me, and I want to also do right by others, because guess what? My goal today is not to hurt no one or get hurt. That's my goal for the day. I'm going to live and let live. Notice something. Bill says we are not cured, but I'd like to show you something. Look at page 180, and let's look at, now this is going to be funny. Let's look at what Dr. Bob said on page 180. Dr. Bob, in Dr. Bob's Nightmare. Look at the first paragraph, or the second one if you want to really be technical. The question which might naturally come into your mind would be, what did the man do or say that was different from what others had done or said? It must be remembered that I had read a great deal and talked to everyone who knew or thought they knew anything about the subject of alcoholism. But this was a man who had experienced many years of frightful drinking, who had had most all the drunkard experiences known to man, but who had been what? Cured, is Dr. Bob, by the very means I had been trying to employ. This is Bob talking. That is to say, the spiritual approach. Remember, spiritual fitness? I'm just reading the book. Bill said we're not. Bob says you can. You refute it for yourself. He gave me information. Reminds me of this channel. Watch this. He gave me information about the subject of alcoholism or addiction, which was undoubtedly helpful. Of far more importance was the fact that he was the first living human with whom I had ever talked who knew what he was talking about in regard to alcoholism from actual experience. Notice something. Not only did he know something, but he was able to do something to get this man's attention, because the only thing people in recovery respect is results. I believe that's why people come in and check this channel out, because I'm not talking about something I haven't experienced. Watch this. In other words, he talked my language, not from a spiritual mountaintop, not telling you that you never recover, not telling you that your disease is in remission. He knew all the answers, and certainly not because he picked them up in his reading, in his own personal reading. Notice something. This is what he said, and he let you know that this man helped him because he was a good sponsor and he was able to give him answers about the problems that he was facing. Now that brings me to telling you about, watch this. We talked about Kerry, we talked about what Bill said, we showed you what Bob said. Pull your 12 and 12 out real quick while I'm thinking about it. And go to page 104. 104. And let's look at the first, notice what the 12 and 12 says. Go to the first paragraph. Watch this, this is interesting. We also fall into another similar temptation. We form ideas as what we think God's will is for other people. We say to ourselves, this one ought to be cured of his fatal malady or problem, or that one ought to be relieved of his emotional pain, emotional anonymous, right? And we pray for these specific things. Such prayers, of course, are fundamentally good acts, but often they are based upon a supposition that we know God's will for the person for whom we pray. We don't know what God's will is for that person. Watch this. We don't know what it is for us. That's why we pray. This means that side by side with an earnest prayer, there can be a certain amount of presumption and conceit in us. It can be fooled. It is AA's experience, that particularly in these cases, we ought to pray that God's will, whatever it is, whether to cure him or not, be done for others as well as for ourselves. You remember? Pray for others instead of praying selfishly. That leads me to what someone asked me the other day about prayer. Remember I told you there are members that have gone on and there are members currently in the fellowship that are fighting to take one of the most powerful tools out of recovery, prayer. Watch this. Go to page 86. Now, before you get there, on page 84, this is step 10. Notice what it says. Step 10 suggests we continue to take personal inventory, which is step 4. That's the column. And continue to set right any new mistakes. That's step 8 and 9. As we go along, are you willing to do this? You said you was willing to go to any lengths, right? It's a yes or no answer. We vigorously commence this way of living as we clean up the past. Are you willing to do that? Yes or no? We have entered the world of the spirit. You remember, the spiritual life is not a theory, it's a way of life. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It takes time. It should continue for a lifetime. A woman asked me on a podcast, Abraham, what step are you working? I told her all of them. Why? No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. Watch this. It also says that these are the steps that we took. I am continuously working them, right? I am practicing these principles to the best of my affairs in all my affairs. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That sounds like your step 4, right? When they crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. Oh, that sounds like step 3 and step 7. Watch this. We discuss them with someone immediately. That sounds like step 5. And make amends. That sounds like step 8 and 9. Quickly, if we have harmed anyone, Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. That sounds like service work. Step 12. Love and tolerance of others is our code. You remember our moral code? It talks about it on page 84. Our moral code is love and tolerance. Watch this. Now, what I want to show you is the prayers for step 12. Step 11. Go to page 86. Page 86. Let me do this real quickly. I know it's lengthy, but hey, this is for people that need it, not for people that want it. Everybody want it, but everybody need it, but everybody don't want it. Watch this. It gives us an outline of what we're to do, and newcomers can do this as well. Notice on page 85, it tells us about the daily reprieve, and it goes on to say in the first paragraph on page 85, every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. Why? Self-will runs riot. So in other words, a recovered person is one who has surrendered self-will for God's will. That's all I did. Watch this. Here are the questions. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. Notice what it says. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. Now, don't let the entertainer tell you, look where your best thinking got you, newcomer. Look what the book says. We can exercise our willpower along this line. All we wish is the proper use of the will. The reason why you're in recovery is because you didn't use your will properly. Self-will, that's what you use. You use it to fulfill your selfish needs. But you're going to learn how to use your will properly to fulfill the one who created you, his will. Now notice something. It says that, if you keep looking, it says that on page 86, notice this. This is for the nighttime. I do this every night. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? That's one thing to think about. Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving towards all? What could we have done better? Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Or were we thinking of what we can do for others? Of what we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection. In other words, reflecting on the past, why it's been removed. For that would diminish our usefulness to others. How can I help you recover if I haven't? After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken. Why? Never discuss your problems with somebody who can't help you solve them. That's why we got back to the source, because we worship the resource, the drugs, the alcohol, whatever. But now we're back connected to the source. Notice what it's going to tell me to do when I wake up in the morning. I do this every morning. Step 11, prayer, meditation. I'm only asking for one thing. What is your will for me? The knowledge of your will. And when you reveal it to me, please give me the power to carry it out. Watch this. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day before we begin. We ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonesty, or self-seeking. And it goes on to talk about, if you continue to read, what we do throughout the day. Now, in closing, I want to show you something else that I think will add a lot of value to you. I want to give you something because I'm often asked about this. Here's a simple morning prayer that I may recite. You know, I do a few other things, and I'll get into it later in the next video. But here's a simple morning prayer, affirmation, confession, declaration that you can use. God, direct my thinking today so that it be empty of self-pity, dishonesty, self-will, self-seeking, and fear. God, inspire my thinking, decisions, and intuitions. Help me to relax and take it easy. Free me from doubt and indecision. Guide me through this day and show me my next step. God, Show me what I need to do to take care of any problems. I ask all these things that I may be of maximum service to you and my fellow man. In the spirit of the steps, I pray. Amen. That's something that I say in the morning. Watch this. That summarizes what is asked to do on page 86, the second paragraph, on awakening. Here is something to do at night that I do. God, forgive me where I have been resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid today. Help me to not keep anything to myself, but to discuss it all openly with another person. Fifth step partner. Show me where I owe an apology and help me make it. Help me to be kind and loving to all people. Use me in the mainstream of life. God, free me of worry, remorse, of morbid, sick reflections, that I may be a usefulness to others. Amen. Both of these are derived from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Notice, that's the prayer at the top of page 86. So, remember that your future success is predicated on your daily routine. A word from our sponsors: study this book, and as Dr. Silkworth says, remain to be prayerful. Now, I want you to look up another word, and I'll go. I want you to look up the word meditate in your big book dictionary, and I want you to look up the word prayer, and you'll see for yourself, right? If this video has been helpful to you, please leave some comments at the bottom. By all means, help me carry this message to other people who are still suffering, because as I told you, I'm a sober person offering newcomer suggestions on recovery. You put those together, that word simply spells out sponsor. So look, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you in the next video, okay? Have a great day. Bye.